Goalie goals, InGoal bumps, and first National Hockey League starts. Welcome to InGoal Radio, the podcast. I'm Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of InGoal Magazine, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. A fantastic episode today with a future Hall of Famer. Can I say that right now? Just a future Hall of Pekka Rinne is going to join us, about to be honored by the Nashville Predators with his number going to the rafters. And when you play as many years as he did and a Vezina trophy in your back pocket, I think there's a spot for him in downtown Toronto at the Hockey Hall of Fame. Let's get into it today. The Sense Arena feature interview is coming up, but the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com, sponsors InGoal Radio, the podcast, and we have a lot going on over with Cam and Company.
Lots of stuff still on sale, guys. We've highlighted some of the sales over the past couple of months. Black Friday, Boxing Day. For you Americans, that's basically like Black Friday Part 2. There are still some things where they've, in some cases, they've actually gone out and secured like more inventory of popular items. You've heard us talk for the past couple of weeks about the Warrior V1 stick line. And I know everybody kind of hears that, and it's 30% off, and there's some great deals. And Cam got over 400 of these beauties. So lots of different sort of paddle lengths and combinations. There's multiple models available, sort of depending on your preferences. They probably have it in stock, all 30% off. A lot of people kind of are like, oh yeah, but like that's V1. You can get V2 now. Why isn't V2? If you check our reviews, both of the V1, which we pushed out on social media, and then go and check V2, the name's changed on V2, but the makeup of the stick is largely the same. Whoa. So great discounts on the V1 stick line from Warrior. Yeah, the layup on the stick and everything like that is mostly just a graphic and sort of label changes on V2. Other sale items I wanted to sort of let everyone know about. All their chest protectors from Warrior are 20% off, and like the full line, like G5 Senior Chest, G5 Intermediate, Junior, Youth, GT2, like they're all on sale, 20% off. And of course, the Von Ventus SLR2 line. We've got the SLR3 line coming up soon. I had some conversations with Von recently about what that's going to look like. Cam's got a demo set. We're going to walk you through that in the very near future. But in the meantime, SLR2, including the SLR2 Pro Carbon Senior Chest, Arm, and Protector, all 20% off. SLR2 Pro Carbon Pants, Senior models, Pro Carbon, everything, 20% off. The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. Make sure you check them out. Lots of great deals still to be had as we start to inch our way towards new equipment season later this spring.
I wonder what the sticks were used, what manufacturer for the goalie goals that we had over the last couple of days. It's been fun to watch. Hutch, you must get excited every time there's a goalie goal alert come across your desk.
Oh, we call each other if we hear that there's a game that's gone into OT with maybe 2 goals gap. Yeah, not OT, sorry, end of the game, and there's about 2 goals gap. The perfect scenario to shoot where you're not taking that too much of a chance because it's only a 1-goal lead. And if I'm at a game, I pull out the camera and get it going just in case. There's nothing better than a goalie goal. I guess the best thing, of course, would be if the goalie goal could pull off like the winning goal or something in a game. But yeah, just love them. Was super excited to see those come across. The one from the Alberta Junior Hockey League, Junior A, and where was the one last night?
Tristan Martin was the one in the AJ. The one last night was Greg Ballack tweeted it out here, so I was.
Greg's the goalie goal guru.
Yeah, Greg is he's the goalie goal guru, and which it's amazing because Greg can't shoot for crap. Like he can barely get it to the blue line. Hope he's listening right now. But for a guy who can't handle the puck or the lick, he sure keeps an eye on where they're being scored. It was Logan Dick who made 38 saves and scored for the Fred Blue Devils hockey. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure where this is. I think this might be, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
If you score a men's league and you're a goalie, I'm giving you props. I don't care what league it is. It could be the National Hockey League or it could be men's league. If you're getting it down there.
There was one here in Nanaimo a couple weeks ago.
Really?
In the league that I used to play in, yep.
I think last night's was actually an NCAA goal, but I'm not sure at what level. Like I think this is a college goal. I don't care. It's just a hell of a goal. So yeah, there we go. Goalie goals.
I find that there's a couple of different classifications of them now. One where they dump it in, you glove it down, and you flip it out. The ones behind the net, like the old Hexy one, where he was behind the net and stepped out front and rifled it, that to me takes it up another notch. What I find now that I'm drawn to, though, is not the actual shot or the puck going in the net. I need to see the celly. What kind of celly is the goal? Is he going to do the bench wave, or is he going to ride the stick? Is he going to get swarmed by his teammates? I'm fascinated by the celebrations of all goalie goals, and that is number one in my list when it comes to priorities of these guys doing it. And the boys, the girls, the men, the women, all taking their shot. Good on you.
Darren, you must have thought about getting one before. What would your celly be?
I think I would probably skate towards the bench and jump into the bench. I would
jump into the bench.
It would probably ruin the entire event because I would hit halfway up the boards and just slide down like Wile E. Coyote. But but that's probably what I would try and do. How about you?
That beats me. I can't. I was just thinking the skate by the bench, the high fives along the whole length of the bench. You'd want to be over there and celebrate with your teammates. And it's something that a goalie obviously never gets a chance to do. Every now and then you get that net front celly at the end of a game or something. Yeah. But the bench skate by you don't get to do. But Darren, that'd be a whole new level if you jumped into the bench. But my luck, I'd take 2 or 3 guys out and put them on the DL for a while. So I don't think that's a good idea.
I've just had a thought. The bench would be open. And I wouldn't see that the gate was slightly unlatched, and I'd fall through and hit somebody. Woody, you got to have some kind of celly in your mind.
Are you kidding me? Like, I pretty much skate to the bench and jump into my teammates anytime I clear it past the blue line. I may have chirped Ballack about his puck handling, but let's just say I'm not famous for being very good at it myself. So the chances of me ever scoring a goal,
and that's with a game stick.
Yeah, exactly. That's with the game, or not even the practice stick. So, the referees applaud when you have the icing and the guy doesn't want to skate. If I can actually get it to the other end without anybody having to come get it in beer league, like that, I get applaud from the referees just if I can get it 3/4 of the way down the ice.
Beer league's a whole nother level though, Woody. Beer league's a whole nother level because you don't get those scrapes every 5 minutes like in the NHL. You don't get the ice clean between periods. So you've got a whole snowbank at the other end that you got to get through.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's good. I had never thought of that, Hutch. I thought it was just because I sucked, which I'm just going to point out. But hey, listen, guys, real quick. I just want to point out one thing. Fredonia University. It's a state university in New York, so it was a college hockey that this goal was scored last night, and he had a wicked celly. Teammates mugged him. It looks like guys came right off the bench, mugged him in his crease.
Did you get his name?
Logan Dick, Fredonia State. Hell of a job. Good celly.
Just to your point that we're penalized because there's snow on the ice and no cleaning during intermissions. Our games are usually only as long as one NHL period anyway. So just keep that in mind when it comes to total time.
I should say too, my Monday night skate actually has a dry scrape halfway through, and it still doesn't help with the puck handling, so it doesn't make a difference. But isn't this a perfect segue? Because when we think of Pekka Rinne, not that we're going straight to the interview, but I want to tease it a little bit because it's one of my favorites. When we think of his moments, I almost think of his goal
right
before I think of the trip to the Cup final or even the Vezina. I know he accomplished all those things, but the goal, the celebration, the smile, it's one of the first things I think of with Pekka.
Has anybody had a better back half or back couple of years of their career? What he threw in the tail end of his career with the goal, the Vezina. Yeah.
Maybe Fleury, but he's not done.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But Pekka crammed a lot into the final couple of years.
Yeah, and he talks about that in the interview. I think what a lot of people forget, there almost was 2 halves to his career. There was this great rise, and then there was the hip surgery and the infection, and it took him a while to sort of get back to being Pekka Rinne as such an active, explosive, athletic goaltender after that. And he talked in the interview about how trying and hard that was physically and emotionally. But you're right. After that, I think 3 of his 4 All-Star game appearances are after the hip surgery. A real great sort of run to the end. And yeah, so anyways, I'm teasing it early, but make sure you stick around for this one, folks, because we talk about great people. Pekka's one of my favorite people in the National Hockey League, and Woody might get a little emotional at the end of this interview.
I just want to point out that you talk about the InGoal bump every year when we do our Vezina picks. I'm like the InGoal curse. Whoever I pick doesn't have a chance. And I remember picking one Pekka Rinne and getting mocked thoroughly by everybody involved at InGoal magazine. and they were probably right. But 1 year later is when he won the Vezina.
Precursor.
So maybe it's just a delayed bump. I don't know.
Didn't we mocked Millard when he said Sergei Bobrovsky at the beginning of the season, didn't we? A little bit. We gave him a hard time. We didn't mock, but we gave him a little bit of a hard time. He's looking pretty good right about now.
We're really good mockers. We're way better mockers than we are our goaltenders. On the subject of the InGoal bump, Spencer Martin was the recipient this week, Woody.
That might be the all-time InGoal bump. Literally was on the taxi squad when he talked to us Friday morning, woke up the next day as the backup, comes here to Vancouver. Thatcher Demko ends up in protocol, gets into his first game last night in almost 5 years. 5 years to the day since his first NHL start with the Colorado Avalanche. He played 3 games with the Avs. Last one was February 1st of 2017. Here we are in 2022. Made a whole bunch of changes to his game. He talked about the process he went through in Tampa Bay with Franz Jean and Joe Palmer there. Talked a lot about sort of the adaptation he's made here with Curtis Sanford and Ian Clark. Talked about the work he's done in the off seasons with Andy Chiodo. 5 years. And his first start is against the highest scoring team in the National Hockey League, the Florida Panthers. And the Canucks, not only are they missing both their goalies, which in this case for him works, but they're missing their top 3 scorers, Bo Horvat, Connor Garland, JT Miller, all in COVID protocol. And all Spencer does is go out and stop 33 of 34, get the Canucks a massive point by getting them to overtime. And he had some beauties in there, especially against Barkov. Loses in a shootout, but with Barkov making an absolute ridiculous one-handed move in the final round. But what a night, what a performance under an absolute ton of pressure, and he delivered. So, and then it's going to continue. He'll probably start, most people will be listening to this and will know the answer, but he's probably going to start. He earned the start Sunday against the St. Louis Blues, and that could be against Jordan Binnington, who he trains with in the offseason. So, great story. One of our best InGoal bumps ever, to go from taxi squad to your first start in 5 years, right after we had you on the pod. Think it probably had a little more to do with all the work that Spencer's put into his game over the past 5 years, but we'll take credit. I get the back pat machine out.
Yeah, don't be shy. If there's any goaltenders out there looking for a little bump in their career, just call Woody.
Yeah.
And he'll get you on for an interview, and almost guaranteed you'll be starting an NHL game a couple days later.
Or send us an email. What's the email?
podcast@ingoalmag.com.
If it's Binnington and Martin, is that one of the great late bloomer matchups that we've witnessed?
Yeah, and the comparisons, like nobody's saying Spencer Martin's going to get in these 2 games, go on a roll, and win a Stanley Cup by the end of the year. Like Jordan Binnington has the all-timer late bloomer story. But there are a lot of underlying comparisons to be made, right? And we talked about this with Charlie Lindgren last week. Like all the opportunities that we're seeing in the NHL right now for guys who maybe never got a shot in some cases. That was Binnington's case. In other cases, maybe got a shot before they were ready, but then years later have made a bunch of changes and a bunch of improvements to their game as they find new mentors in the offseason, new voices, new techniques, new approaches with different franchises. Like this is the year to get that opportunity. And, certainly Spencer has an opportunity to become one of those names at the top of that list, this year with a Charlie Lindgren, with a Zach Fucale. And Binnington, I think, is kind of at the all-time top of that list based on...
No. He's one below.
Who's the all-timer I'm missing?
Johnny Bauer. Johnny Bauer is the all-time greatest late bloomer.
There you go.
I'm reading his Wikipedia page as we speak. Yeah.
2 old guys on the same wavelength right there, you and I.
Yeah, and so made his NHL debut at the age of 29, beats out Gump Worsley for the Rangers' starting goaltender position. Then he gets sent down for 4 years, I think it was, in the minors before he came back up in his 30s to stay with the Leafs. There's a late bloomer for you.
But in modern times, I think we could go with certainly Jordan and then the inspiration of Spence. That'll just be a cool moment. That'll be one of those for goalies. If you're in the rink and you're able to watch warm up, watch the tap like we saw with Marc-Andre and Robin Lehner, and different times we see goaltenders give a nod of respect. That'll be one of those ones to keep an eye on. So Woody, you're in charge of that. Maybe get the phone out and start recording.
Yeah, hey, and like if nothing else, like at least we don't have to worry about Binnington throwing down in this game.
Oh yeah, or maybe he does because he knows the guy at the other end, and it'll add some fun to it.
We're just teasing. We're just having a little fun. But yeah, like what a neat story. And so, and the sad part here is like by the time people hear this podcast, like this will have happened probably. Not everybody listens when it first comes out. Shame on you, by the way. But it is a great story. And the funny thing is like, because of the way things are right now in the NHL and no access, like I'm pretty sure the three of us right now, and maybe those two guys and Coach Andy Chioda are the only ones that know about it.
Oh, really?
St. Louis isn't skating here today. No Binner, no access. Nobody asked about Spencer about it last night. He's practicing today, but he probably won't be on the Zoom. Like you can't sidle up to a guy in the locker room and say, hey, how special is this relationship? You can't do that anymore, right? It's all Zoom. And the fact that Spencer talked after his first game last night means he's probably not going to be on the Zoom today, which means, we'll probably be the only three that know this going into tomorrow. But we had a special picture we'll put on social media to let the rest of the world know about it.
What is that special picture?
It's a special picture of Spencer Martin, who is he in the picture or was it later on? May or may not be wearing David Hutchison's undergarments with...
Oh, I wasn't going to share that one for poor Spencer.
Jordan Binnington and a young Matty Hutchison, who is like waist high to these guys at that point, maybe a little taller, and now actually is probably as tall as Spencer and taller than Binner or close to it.
Pushing Spencer and taller than Binner by a couple inches.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, those guys really hit a flat spot in their growth, didn't they?
Yeah, they just weren't trying hard enough.
Like a lot of us, we peaked with 420.
That's really neat, and now everybody's like gone on to great things, and those two are in the National Hockey League, and Hutch is working his way into Major Junior. That's really neat.
I got an honorable mention on the late bloomers. Just people should go back and listen to the Jamie Storr interview from the podcast. Because remember, guys, his father was almost a late bloomer, hadn't even played hockey growing up, picked up rec league hockey and got himself a tryout with the Toronto Maple Leafs when the goalie coach was one Johnny Bauer. Came that close to the NHL at a rec hockey. That was a pretty awesome story.
I thought you were going to go with Jamie Storr there for a minute. I'm like, he was on the 2-time all-rookie team. So thanks for clarifying that.
He was an early bloomer. Yeah.
So let's slide over to our Sense Arena VR feature interview, Pekka Rinne. And there's a lot in this conversation. And you are going to hear Pekka as comfort. If you don't know him, you're really going to enjoy this. But one thing, even if you do know him, you're going to appreciate how just cool of a guy he is, comfortable. And I love hearing the starts of these interviews when Kevin sits down with somebody that he's covered, but also is considered a friend. And just as a preface, this has nothing to do with really goaltending, but Kevin's going to say the name of a sport, a Finnish sport, and he's going to ask if that's the proper pronunciation. And Pekka's going to say, yeah, it is. And then Pekka, like 3 minutes later, is going to say the name of that sport totally differently. So not only is Pekka a cool guy and a great ambassador, but he's also very kind to Kevin because the pronunciations of these sports is not even close. It's Finnish baseball, by the way. Pesapolo.
Safe to say we wouldn't be as nice to Kevin.
No, not a chance we're that nice to him.
Hey, as long as we're going around the world to talk to Pekka Rinne, I think, was he in Switzerland at the time? We've got to talk just briefly here, guys, about Sense Arena's Global Hockey Skills Challenge or Hockey Skills Global Tour. They've had this competition going on for all Sense Arena users for several months now. And this month, we're about to unveil in a couple of days here, probably about the time a lot of people will be listening to this, the next installment of the challenge, which is sponsored by the Los Angeles Kings. And winners will have an opportunity to pick up a little bit of signed LA Kings memorabilia. Haven't quite unveiled yet what that is, but some cool stuff coming from the Kings, no doubt. It's worth mentioning that LA's goalie coach, Bill Ranford, has been involved with Sense Arena very close to day one. One of the training plans that you can do on Sense Arena is guided by Bill Ranford. So 6 days worth of different drills that he's arranged and talked about why he thought they were important. There's many more in there, including Dominik Hasek, the greatest goaltender of all time to many of us. Great training plans are at the heart of Sense Arena that can guide you through your experience. Or if you want, you can freestyle it and just work through all the great drills that are available there to improve your goaltending. But I do encourage people, if you're a Sense Arena user, get on board with this competition. You could win some of that Kings memorabilia. You can see how you stand versus other goaltenders all around the world because they post the results on their website at all times. And then there'll be a group of people that are going to move on from these individual competitions for the overall championship with a chance to win a trip to the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. So some real cool stuff happening over at Sense Arena. Woody, you noticed something cool they were doing over at Sense Arena this week as well, didn't you?
No, that was Darren who noticed, but I noted too.
I'm sorry, Darren.
Trevor Zegras. Nice try, Hutch.
But I just wanted to give Woody a chance to talk.
I think
again.
it's important that Woody we fit him in as much as we can because it's tough to squeeze in.
I can see that setup coming from a mile away, boys.
Darren, what do you got going on over at Sense Arena?
Well, the Sense Arena has a player application to it as well. So with one license, you can dive into the players and see it and train as a player or as a goaltender. And they have the Zegras goal in adaptation to it. So you can try that through Sense Arena and not have to worry about putting the lights out in the backyard underneath the eaves trough or anything like that, or a window, and you can just train with that. I don't know whether the goalie perspective is in just yet, but for the Zegras play, it's available on the player side.
I think that highlights something that Brian DeCord told us is coming down the pipe in the next year or so. That you'll be able to, or at least teams that are involved with Sense Arena are going to be able to take video, take particular things they want to scout and see, and get it put right into that Sense Arena system very quickly. So you're going to be able to really be scouting in virtual reality. And obviously they turned this one around fairly quickly. What a cool tool. And one of the great things about Sense Arena we've talked about before is that it's an ongoing license. So they're always updating the software, and you can see new things pretty much all the time. And then I think 4 major releases a year as well. So really excited about what they're doing right now with both the new skills challenge or the ongoing skills challenge, and then all the ongoing developments at Sense Arena as well, boys.
I was training with it the other night, and it was funny because like on Monday I was terrible. Tuesday I was a little bit better, and Wednesday I felt comfortable with it. It was just bizarre how it just took me a little bit, because you see it and it improves your reaction time, but you do have to work with it and allow yourself to catch up in the sense of, and that's what it's there for, is to train you. And I got that benefit.
I think that actually one of the modes that we need to educate Darren on a little bit here that I know is a popular one. We've heard Eric Comrie talk about this mode in Sense Arena, the ability to sort of have shots come at you and see it, but then also pause it and sort of go look from the shooter's perspective and see, how much of the net you're filling, how close you are to those pucks. We've heard Eric talk about just letting pucks go in and then going and looking at the replay to see how much Woody had to have moved, like how much of that net is he filling. Be a good one for Darren on the sharp angles and the reverse VH, because he could use that puck perspective and he'd be able to ask Sense Arena, is there any space over my shoulder, instead of having to ask Jack Eichel, was there any room there? Which led to a very cool photo on on Twitter that we retweeted this week. Yeah. Darren asking, after getting beat short side shelf on an RVH. By the way, I thought your RVH form looked really good, by the way. But
except for the gaping
was there any
hole.
room there? And Eichel's got his stick crammed through about a 10-inch square hole over the shoulder. You can do that in Sense Arena too, Darren, so you don't have to ask the all-star players if there is.
There's nothing like having a top 10 forward in the National Hockey League trying to be polite to you, going, there's a little bit there, and stick his stick right through there.
Might be able to fit the basketball.
It's just a tad bit. I felt like I had it covered, and you're right. I'm going to try that. The box control on Sense Arena is a really cool tool as well. And so there's a lot going on, and I will be part of that competition. I can't wait for that competition. But the feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR, is Pekka Rinne. I don't know whether there's anything that you want to set up here going into it, or just let it roll, because it does cover a lot of what Pekka went through at the tail end of his career and transitioning into retirement, and where you find the right time and how you come to be at peace with that. And then there's some real great anecdotes about playing the game when he was with Nashville.
Yeah, there's just everything in here, and I think just we've got some big retirements coming up here, big jersey retirements, and obviously ahead of Pekka is Henrik Lundqvist, who we played a little text tag with and had to move some dates around, but still hoping to have him on ahead of his. But I feel like, don't forget that this is coming up in February. Like, we're running this interview now, but in February, Pekka's jersey is going up to the rafters in Nashville, and the bond between Pekka Rinne and the community of Nashville, Middle Tennessee area is every bit as strong as the one between Henrik Lundqvist and New York City. This guy is the face of a franchise. He's their first ever icon. When you talk to people around the Predators, I talked to David Poyle, I talked to their CEO, Sean Henry, I talked to UC Soros for a magazine article about this event coming up ahead of their Stadium Series game. Like, he is the Nashville Predators in a lot of ways. And it was the work in the community that he did. It's the person that he is. And I hope some of that comes through. It comes through in some of my emotion at the end of it, because he always made you feel good and feel special when he was speaking to you. It was just a way that he had, because that's who he is. And so I hope that comes through, because it's much more than just Pekka Rinne, the goaltender. It's Pekka Rinne, the person that's being honored in February in Nashville. And I got to be honest, like, I know we have guys we've met in the league, and there are a lot that we just think are the greatest people, but Pekka is at the top of that list. He's one of the best people I've ever had the pleasure of talking to in the game of hockey.
InGoal Radio, the podcast, presented by Source for Sports, The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. It's our feature interview. Pekka Rinne, a one-franchise goalie, Vezina Trophy winner, hanging out with Kevin Woodley in the feature interview presented by Sense Arena.
Can't tell you how happy I am just to actually see this man's face on a Zoom call again after all the years of bugging him in the locker room. And what an honor to have on the InGoal Radio podcast, Pekka Rinne. Retired last year. You're in Europe now. Got a big ceremony coming up this month to retire your jersey. Just catch us up, Pekka. How are things going? How's retired life treating you?
Thanks, Kev. Everything's great. Thank you. Yeah, I've been ever since after the summer. I've been back in Finland, and actually now in Switzerland, and it's been amazing. I mean, a lot of family time. Still, obviously keeping up with hockey, and obviously following Brett's all the time, and watching all the games and things like that. But it's been awesome. I mean. To be honest, I was a little nervous after I announced my retirement. Obviously it's something unknown to me, living without hockey, without my teammates, without going to the rink every single day. But it's been nice change, and I feel like I prepared myself pretty well over the past couple of years, thinking about this decision. And right now it feels like it was the right time and right moment for me, and I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I guess you probably didn't miss the off-season training, but I've heard from a lot of guys that as October rolls around for the first time, that can be the toughest point. Did you have that moment where you thought about training camp? But how did you know too? Like, how did you know last summer that this was the time?
To be honest, I didn't 100%. I obviously it's impossible, but I just thought I tried to use, I used pros and cons. You know what I mean? Like I put, things down on the paper, and but all in all, I just thought that it's perfect timing. It's I couldn't be more happy with my career at that point, and everything that happened over my career, and then until the last game. I feel like the last game was also a little bit of it had something to do with it. I really got to say goodbye to the fans, and it was important to me to go out on my own terms. But yeah, I mean, there's been different situations. I feel the first time I went to see a game in November, I was in Nashville in November, and go in the rink and watch the game. it felt so weird. Just sitting there and trying to enjoy the game. I don't know, my palms were sweaty and just I wanted to be out there and but no, I never once and then about the working out, I try to stay in shape and try to keep the same, at least like an old routine, do something every day and try to stay in shape. But it's been the right decision so far.
That last game, it was so emotional. It was such a joy to watch from the outside. The relationship between you and the fans in Nashville. How do you describe that bond? Like, where do you think that comes from? I know I've asked some other people around the organization about how special it is and where it comes from. Where for you, like, how did that happen? Because it's not often that you can create that type of relationship, it would seem, with an entire city, Pekka.
Yeah, I don't know. That's how I felt right away ever since my first year with Nashville. I felt like, no matter how I played, ups or downs, and I had good stretches, bad stretches, and the fans would always support me. And ever since those days, my early years, 08, 09, 2010, I felt like, there's something special here. And they really showed the love, and then obviously the benefit is, I was fortunate enough to play for the same organizations for so long, and that's how you build up a relationship. But yeah, I do feel very lucky with that in that regard, and it still gives me goosebumps thinking about the last game, and it was like, movie ending and picture perfect ending. It was amazing.
Now, have you thought ahead to what it's going to be like on the night you return? I know you've been back to watch games, but what it's going to be like being back on the ice and to see your jersey going to the rafters, the first one ever to be retired by that organization, an organization you're so intertwined with.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I think the biggest thing I'm excited for is, being able to actually share it with my family and my friends. And so many things over my career, my family, my friends, and everybody has been back in Finland and, watching over the screens or, whatever, watching highlights or that type of stuff. And now I have a chance to bring everybody over. And I think that's a one thing I'm really looking forward to, that, I get to share it with everybody. And I just hope I'm not too emotional and too nervous about it. I try to just enjoy it. It's going to be awesome.
Okay, well, there's so many moments. I want to ask you like about some of the biggest ones of your career with the Predators, but rather than asking you to pick a few, like take me back to where it started. How did Pekka Rinne fall in love with the position? Because I think every time I've gotten the chance to talk to you, whether it's gear or technique, and I know I was annoying with all those questions, but you always had a genuine passion, it seemed, for the position of goaltending. Where'd that start?
It started really early. My cousin, who's 7 years older than me, he was a goalie, and he was my idol, and I looked up to him. And they actually lived right next to us growing up, so I got to spend a lot of time with him. And I must have been that annoying young guy, little kid. I was always knocking on their door, and Yari is his name, and I would be like, Yari, can you come outside? Let's play, and can I see your gear, and things like that. But it started really early, and just like street hockey. I mean, I always wanted to be a goalie, and my cousins were shooting on me, and I think the gear, just the position in general, it was just fascinating to me. And after that, I started following, different Finnish goalies, and obviously back then, the news outlets weren't the same as nowadays. But I would collect newspapers and the sports pages, and I would cut out the pictures if they were like goalie pictures, and it was fun.
Now, I read that was Van Beesbrook. Who was your first guy sort of from outside of Finland, like from the NHL that you admire?
Yeah, the Beezer.
The Beezer. All right. And did you actually send him notes and stuff and he would reply?
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I still have, a few hockey cards, and he actually signed them and sent actual like a letter with them, which was super impressive. And yeah, I still have them. I actually had a chance to meet him like early on in my career when he was still working on TV, and so I told him the story, and he loved it. It was like, oh, that's awesome. And
I am curious, like, because one of the things I've heard from people around the community in Nashville and the organization is your bond with the fans was strong in a lot of ways because you were so interactive with them through charity work and all the extra things you did, but not just for the cameras, just because that's who you were. Win or lose after a game, you were meeting with kids. And did that, having a guy like Van Beesbrook early on respond so directly, like, did that have a lasting effect on you, or is that just who you are and how you were raised regardless?
Yeah, I think when something like that happens, when you idolize something, and that person actually reaches back to you, as when you're a little kid, it's pretty impressive, and I'm sure it leaves a little imprint in your system. And so, but I'd like to think that I try to treat every people the same. It doesn't matter if you're an NHL player or if you're a fan coming to the game. I try to treat everybody. I know it sounds cheesy, but that's the way I try to treat people. And but I that's the way I try to go about my business.
Well, it certainly hasn't gone unnoticed in Nashville. I wanted to ask you about your history with goalie coaching, starting back to those early years. You talk about street hockey and just playing. We've heard so much about sort of the Finnish system, and I know it's quite regional, and then everyone would get together for an annual meeting, and how many great goalies they've developed over the years. What was your first introduction to goalie coaching back in Finland?
I think when I was a kid, that was the time when they really started paying attention to goalies in Finland, and that was the time former goalies or goalies playing in a top league in Finland, they started having their own like summer camps, things like that, and I would attend to those, and I would go there, and but team wise, it came a little bit later, maybe when I was like 14, 15, had my first goalie coach. And but I mean, obviously it's super helpful, and when you have somebody who actually comes on the ice every single time you skate, and you get some extra time with the goalie coach. And but I feel like that was the time when they really started doing something about it in Finland, and I feel like for some years they had a little bit of edge in that regard, having goalie coaches, and generating more goalies from Finland. But I feel like after that, obviously a lot of the other countries picked up on it pretty soon. But I feel like I was 14, 15 when I had my first goalie coach.
Nowadays, 14 or 15 would be late by most standards,
yeah,
right? Like we see kids.
Exactly.
But looking back at, do you think that's a good thing? Like this is a chicken and egg argument, and I don't know that there's a right answer, but up to that age, you would have had to mimic others, learn on your own, figure out how to read the game without sort of having it all laid out in front of you. Do you think, looking back, there's a benefit to maybe not having too much of that coaching structure at too young an age?
Yeah, I'm sure. I feel like,
I mean, it worked out.
Yeah. I'm sure there's benefits to both of those aspects, but yeah, I mean, when you don't have a goalie coach, you make your mistakes, and you either learn or you don't, and it kind of it forces you to think about the game, think about kind of taking a step outside of the crease, and trying to look yourself from the outside, and you know what I mean. And I still think that it's better to have a goalie coach, and have a good relationship with your goalie coach. And I certainly, after that point, I've been very lucky with my goalie coaches. I got a lot of help from them.
We've all heard the story of the draft, them not actually even getting to see you play in a game. I think was it Nicholas Backstrom you were backing up? They were what?
Yeah.
What, did you know it? Did you know? You've heard the story, obviously. Were you aware that somebody had come to watch you that night at the time?
Yeah, somebody told me about it, and I remember I was like, "Come on, please let me play," and and I knew about it, so like I didn't play that night, and but anytime I got the net during the warm-ups, I just tried my hardest, and just tried to take some extra shots, and probably didn't even give the net to Backy, who was playing, and but yeah, it's a funny story. Obviously Ray Shiro played a big role, for me getting drafted. And
what about the draft itself? Like, I mean, I'm curious, did you watch it? Do you know, how did you find out you'd been picked?
My Finnish agent called me and told me about it, and yeah, I had no clue. It's every time there's a draft, it's around like this midsummer party in Finland, and it's a traditional thing that you go to a cottage or a cabin. And so me and my bunch of my friends, we were in a cottage, and my agent calls me, and you got drafted, and I'm like, wow, like, and not, I mean, at the time it was to me it was such a surprise. I didn't really think about it too much, and but obviously a positive one, and it was awesome.
Transition to the North American game, because it's not an easy one to make. I think a lot of people forget, there was I know an injury played a role in sort of slowing the start of your career, shoulder injury that took a while to come back from. But that transition to North America, it's easy. You've had such a remarkable career with the Predators. It's easy to forget you spent a lot of time in the American League. What was the toughest part? Who were the guys that helped you the most with that transition? And was there a moment where it all clicked for you?
I feel like looking back, it was such a important time for me. I played 3 years with Milwaukee, and I love Milwaukee. I love the Admirals. They were awesome, and it was great for me. There was my first year in Milwaukee, there was nobody else from Finland, and it was really good for me. It forced me to learn the language, and but yeah, there were so many guys who helped me along the way. And my first year, I actually lived with Kevin Klein, who ended up having a great career, and younger prospect Paul Brown, and those guys really helped me out. And my second year, I lived with Rich Peverly, who ended up having a really good career. And so, I mean, all in all, it was such a great experience for me. And like you mentioned, my second year, I ended up having that shoulder surgery, and it kind of slowed everything down a little bit. But only time I was doubting the whole thing, if this ever gonna work out, it was my third training camp. And when I got sent down, that was at the time that was a hard pill to swallow, but David kept telling me that they have a plan for me. They still believe in me, and so I think that helped me a lot. And I ended up having a really good year, my third year in Milwaukee, and ended up playing a lot of games. And I feel like, obviously it's easy now looking back, but it really helped me down the road. But yeah, I had nothing but good memories from Milwaukee and from AHL.
Now, the early years in Nashville, you arrive and the team starts to build up. I remember covering the first playoff run. And I remember I think it was my introduction to social media too. I remember the hashtag, "What's in Pekka's glove?" There was, I don't know if you remember that, but all the focus was about your glove hand and how active it was. And I know you've shared this story with me in the past, and I remember being one of the ones that asked you about it at the time, but the roots of that glove and your great hands and the importance of playing other sports. Can you fill the audience that hasn't heard the story in before about Pesapola, if I'm saying it correctly, and
You are.
how it works and how important that was to you to have, at a time when goaltenders were becoming a little passive, not yourself, but becoming a little sort of close the holes mentality. You came on the scene with this dynamic, active glove. And I remember talking to Weber about all the rebounds it saved because you'd catch pucks instead of kicking them out, and just how important that was and where the roots of it were for us.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Finnish pesäpallo. It's like Finnish baseball, a little different rules, but yeah, growing up, like, winter, summertime, I would always carry my baseball glove, and I would always have a ball. I would throw it against the wall and catch it, and I would play street hockey just wearing that, not like a typical hockey goalie glove, and it kind of forced you to catch pucks rather than let them hit you. Otherwise, you get hurt. And I don't know how much it goes to pesäpallo, and but it was always something that I felt it felt natural, and I probably, sometimes it got me into trouble too, because I tried to catch everything, and my glove hand was so more dominant, I guess, and even some of the shots to my blocker side, I would catch them cross body, and shots on the ice, I would scoop them up, and but for sure it was something that they always say that players have something that kind of separates you, and I think that was one of my thing that it kind of separated me, and I tried to use it as much as I could, but yeah, I think it is the other sports, your hand and eye coordination, everything like that, and but then on the other hand, over the years in North America, it really took time for me to actually use my body. I'm a tall guy, I'm a big body, and I wasn't very good at using my body in the early years, and so there's always a trade-offs, and there's always other areas that you can improve, and it always felt natural to use my glove, and it was something that was my strength, but then there was other areas that I had to get better, and so there's always trade-offs. And
was it how'd you work on, like, I'm curious how you work. Did you ever have a point where you had a goalie coach say, like, you can't catch puck, like, we don't want you doing that? Because I think there may have been some at that time that might have been that way, that might have said, hey, he'd be better off if he just blocked, and yet it felt like, watching from the outside, like nobody ever sort of forced you to lose that completely, and I would guess that that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Never once. I mean, everybody. I mean, I was lucky in US. North America, I only had Mitch Korn and Ben Vanderklok as my goalie coaches, and they never ever tried to take it out of my game, or obviously there were times that you look some of the goals afterwards, and I had like double coverage. I would hold my glove in front of my pad, which doesn't make any sense, and things like that, where I was just like anticipating shots with my glove, and ended up getting beat somewhere else, and otherwise I probably would have made the save if I would have just used my body, but still never ever they tried to take it away, which was awesome, and they also always thought that it's my strength, and it's something that I can use to my advantage, and so yeah, I really appreciate it.
The Preds are rising as a team. You're getting into the playoffs. You're having exceptional seasons. Everything is rolling, and then you have the hip injury, the surgery, which was, there's different types of hip surgery. You got the tough one. You got the microfracture. Then you had an infection after. I'm not sure people around the league appreciated how hard it was to come back from that, especially after having all that success. How tough was that process for you, and how long did it take before you played such a dynamic game. How long did it take for you to feel like Pekka Rinne again?
It was the hardest year of my life, to be honest with you. It was emotionally, physically, everything. It was you're a young guy and you feel like you've kind of started building up your career, and you're at that point, and you're so hungry and everything like that. And then not only the surgery but the infection, that was the thing that there's so much unknown. And the doctors, they couldn't give you any estimates how long it's going to take, and things like that. So it was really frustrating. And but yeah, I mean, after that, I remember that year, I think it was March or something, when I came back. We only had like 20 games left, and probably ended up playing like 10 of them or something like that. And then obviously I didn't feel I didn't at the time, I didn't feel like myself. And but soon as the season ended, I ended up going to World Championships and ended up having a really, really good tournament. And I think just confidence wise and mentally, that was so important to me, to play good hockey and actually feel like myself. And so it was ended up working out for me, and then ended up having a really good summer. Next summer, I knew that I had to work really hard. And I think around that time, unfortunately, Barry Trotz was let go at the end of that season, and Peter Laviolette came along, and everything just clicked, not only for myself but for the team too, and ended up having a pretty good stretch with Peter as a head coach. But at that time, I really think that World Championships was a really big thing for me.
That sort of second rise, like you guys had risen, and like you said, and then that was really tough for you emotionally and physically to come back from. Did it make sort of that, I almost look at it like a second half of your career, and more rewarding? I mean, the Vezina Trophy, the trip to the Cup final, like, did it mean more having sort of been to the peak and sort of got knocked down by injury and then having to climb your way back up? Was it at all more satisfying? Plus, you always seem to continue to evolve as a goalie. We talk about the glove hand, but you were always sort of looking for new ways to keep getting better.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a chance for me to improve as an athlete. Recovering from an injury. And then you had to start thinking how to prevent future injuries. And so it kind of it made me a better athlete. I started living, more clean and taking care of my body and things like that. And in the long run, I feel like it was, there was a lot of benefits for me too. And but yeah, I guess you could call it like a second half of my career. And during that stretch, I ended up having the most success of my, individually. And but yeah, I until the end, and that's a big thank you to Ben Vanderklok too. And I tried to, every season we try to, tweak few things and few areas of my game where I could maybe be more efficient, more dynamic, or whatever it might be. And obviously one thing at that time was like the post play, reverse BH, things like that. But it's this is why goalie position is so much fun. I don't think we've seen. I mean, you look at the way these guys play, Vasilevsky and Jussi, Saros, and it's so exciting. But I think there's going to be something else coming along, that's going to change the position again a little bit. But it's just so interesting, and that's the way I look at it. It's there's always, you can use your imagination, you can mimic other guys, and it's just amazing position.
one of the evolutions for you was puck handling. I remember talking to you when Lavi took over the games, you guys weren't giving up a lot of shots. And so the games were less engaging. It was harder to stay. And you approach that like, hey, I can get more involved if I handle the puck more. Is that an accurate, am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah.
All that work.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. So was that, how much, like, is that something other kids can emulate if they're in the same situation? Like, hey, there's always something, and puck handling can keep you engaged maybe on nights where you don't get a lot of shots.
Yeah, I think exactly right. I remember at the time there were games where I would get, less than 20 shots, and you feel like you're like a non-factor, and especially if you lose a game, you feel terrible. And but yeah, I think that was the one thing. I always felt confident handling the puck, and I just started doing it more and more, and started getting braver and braver, and jumping against the glass, and cutting rims, and going behind the net when we are on penalty kill and the other team is on power play, and just trying to get involved, and obviously try to limit my mistakes, but yeah, I think it was at that time, yeah, you're right. I really tried to focus on it, and I worked a lot on it in practice too.
How'd you work on it in practice? Because I think that a lot of times for young goalies, we always hear that puck handling is something that can separate you as a goaltender, and you bring extra value to your team. And yet when I watch teams practice, they almost never do it. Like the goalie, yeah. Did you have to find ways yourself? Is it just about having a puck on your stick at all times? How'd you get better at it?
Yeah, I think that's a one thing too. Just to, handle the puck. I mean, just carry puck all the time. When you're skating around, there's enough time in practices where, it's just Indy 500 and guys are just skating around, and, that's a good time to just handle pucks, shoot pucks, receive passes, cutouts, things like that. And yeah, you're right. There's, hardly ever. I mean, that's obviously one area of, goaltending that, a lot of times I feel like goalie coaches, they rather work on your post plays, or, recoveries, or rebounds, or, whatever it might be. But yeah, I feel like especially, and then later on in my career, when Yuzi came along, we actually did it all the time. Us three, me, Yuzi, and Ben, and we would just like pass pucks and, put it on the rim, and the other guy would, take it behind the net, and pass it on the other side, and we would do that at the end of the practice pretty much every day, and things like that. And now when I look at Yuzi, he's gotten so much better, and so I think it's something that there's no like miracle work, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's something that when you feel confident and comfortable with the puck, I think it helps. It helps a lot.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but I used to write one of the NHL.com columns every Christmas. We'd do like every second year, we'd alternate it. We used to do the present story, which I used to ask you about, what was your favorite Christmas present memory? But then the other one was I would ask goalies if you could take one skill from another goalie in the NHL and put it under the tree so you could add it to your game, what would it be? And we used to get Pekka Rinne's glove a lot. We'd get Carey Price's skating. But Devin Dubnyk, his answer one year was, I want to be able to get out behind the net and stop rims the way Pekka Rinne stops rims. So that active style of stopping everything definitely did not go unnoticed by your peers. And I'm guessing, like, did that play, you were rewarded for it? Does all that work pays off? Do you think all that, especially being so active stopping pucks, is that what ultimately leads to the goal in such a great moment?
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. And there's a lot of guys who are so good with the puck, and it doesn't. And that's also like a lot of times kids, they always, they look at the goalie who can shoot the puck really high or really hard, and like, it's not about that. It's about, it's about helping your team, and, intercepting passes or rims, or giving that easy outlet pass and making things easier for your D-man. But yeah, I think down the road it really helped. Getting that first goal.
What's that? I mean, not that you've talked about it so many times. What's that feeling like when you watch it go in?
Oh, surreal! It's something that I think for me, it was something that I thought about so many times. I'm like, oh, like just I want to score so bad. Just give me that one chance, and then sure enough, when I see it go in, it's such a dream-like feeling. It's like, oh man, this is unbelievable. And but yeah, it's a fun memory, and obviously, to me, it kind of goes into the kind of like a funny category. It's not that. I feel like when that happened, I noticed that it's not that important to me. You know what I mean? Like it's such a like a cool thing, but yeah, it's for sure. I'll always remember that.
Last one. I wanted to ask you a little bit about UC and that relationship. Not every tandem and partnership is warm and fuzzy, right? It's a position that can be predatory at times, right? Like you want to steal starts, you want to. What is it that allowed you guys to have that? Everybody jokes about the father-son thing, the brothers, him living with you, but like it almost feels like you took a lot of pride in helping him along on this path. And I know there are times you learn from him, which is kind of crazy to think about given how he was coming in fresh and you were so well established. What were some of the things you learned, and why was it important to you to help him develop?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, it helps that we're both from same country, and you have the same language. But I think the biggest thing for me was, as soon as I saw him on the ice, I saw the talent, and I saw how hard he works, and I knew that it's just a matter of time when he's gonna be the starter, and I knew that we're gonna play together for at that time I knew that at least for a couple of years we're gonna play together, and I just decided that might as well use it for both of our advantage. And I knew right away that I could learn from him, and I knew that I could be helpful to him, and yeah, it was a great relationship, and still is, and this obviously makes me proud.
Can you give me a couple examples? Like, cause I look at you guys, right? And obviously, like you're this big athletic goaltender, and he's so much smaller. Can you give our audience a couple, like, what does Pekka Rinne, with all this career under his belt and this big athletic goaltender, learn from 5'10"? I guess 5'11" officially, but I'm not sure about that. UC Saros.
Yeah. I mean, just like, especially like when you look at the UC and you look at how he reads the shots. He's so patient. He's obviously he's so quick too, but like he uses his feet better than any most of the guys, and he kind of, I don't know how to put it, but I think those are the things. I mean, just his patience, the way he reads the game, way he reads shots. I think there were things that I got so used to, just like automatically when there's a shot, I would just like drop down and then I would trust my hands. I always had good hands, so I would like make saves on my knees, but usually, obviously, being smaller guy, he would like wait until the very last moment and stay on his edges, and that actually, he's very like fake resistant, and that helps him a lot because he's able to stay on his edges until the very last moment, and those were the things that I really tried to learn from him. And among the other things, I mean, there's obviously he's very good at post plays and simple things. His game looks very simple, and but it's like a dock. You know, when you look at the dock, it looks very calm, but there's a lot going on under this surface of the. but yeah,
he makes it look easy sometimes, doesn't he?
Oh yeah. He's a special goalie.
Well, and I know he took a lot from you too. Like, he talked about, competing. Like maybe sometimes he needed to go as perfect as the technique could be for him. Sometimes he needed to go outside of that and learn to battle. And that's something he took from you. Did you guys actually talk about these things, or did you just absorb them from each other naturally? Or probably a little bit of both, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think there was a lot of, we would talk about the position in general, and about our differences and about situations on the ice. And I think it helped a lot. And yeah, you're right. I mean, early on, he wasn't best at, scrambling around the net and situations that were like weird, he made them look like super weird. Like he didn't really know how to scramble. And I think that's one thing that, he got better right away. But yeah, I mean, he's like a sponge. He learns quick, and he watches other guys, and that's the one thing I always tell other goalies, that just keep looking at the other guys too. And obviously you wanna do things that work for you, but you also wanna look at the other guys, and you can always learn something new.
I know he emulated you style-wise too. I remember asking him why he wore a batting glove underneath his glove, and he just told me this is early in his career, and he just says, well, because Pekka does.
Yeah, and I actually took it from this Finnish goalie back in the day.
So was it a batting glove, or what kind of glove did you wear under
No, there? It's a golf glove.
So you were, okay, and that was your whole career. Can I ask why? This is a weird one to end on, but now I got to ask why. I opened the door.
I mean, I started using it already back in Finland because this other guy, he was wearing it, and I thought that it's like, at the time, I thought it's so cool. Like, I mean, always golf glove under the actual glove, and but I would always say that it, when he gets sweaty and stuff, it doesn't slip as much. And I mean, you just get used to the feeling. I think that's the biggest thing. You just. You feel naked if you don't wear it, and it feels weird when I just put my glove on without it. And I mean, it's something that's just stuck, and
it's another one of those things that makes this position so unique, right? There's not always a reason. So exactly. Pekka, listen, I can't thank you enough for all this time today. Mostly, I can't thank you enough for all the conversations over the years. Little bits here and there about all these quirky little things that we goalies love, and for sharing your passion with our audience. Thank you so much for this. I know, like a lot of people, whether you were in Nashville and a fan of the Predators or just a hockey fan in general, everyone was a Pekka Rinne fan. And I know when you played that last game and that emotion came out after, everyone felt connected. I think I can say that, like a lot of people did. And I know we're all looking forward to seeing that jersey go up as well. You've been such a gift to the game. Thank you so much for your time today, and for all the time over the years, sharing it with us goaltenders who are always big fans of yours.
Thanks, Kevin. I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure over the years to talk with you, and to the audience, goalies rule. Let's go.
Love it. Love it. The goalie union is strong. Thanks again, Pekka.
That's right. Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kev. That was outstanding. I actually went back and listened to the final 5 minutes of that interview just to get it was such a genuine connection between you two that I wanted to listen to it again. So that was really cool from Pekka Rinne standpoint. And I like the relationship with Jussi as well that you guys touched on. And Jussi has taken that ball, and he is, I don't know whether there's been a smoother handoff between franchise player to the next guy than what the Nashville Predators have done.
Yeah, and I think that's credit to Pekka, right? Like, he saw what we talked about it there. He saw what UC was going to be, and so he embraced it. And he embraced getting better. Like, he recognized that UC could help him get better, and then he could help. And it's all part of the legacy, right? Like, I had to write this magazine piece for the stadiums. Like, they've got a Stadium Series game against Tampa Bay. They're playing an outdoor game at Nissan Stadium, home of the Tennessee Titans. And so the program for that game needed a big piece on Pekka. So it was more than just the goaltending. I dug into all the elements. And in some ways, this legacy that you talk about with Pekka Rinne and the Nashville Predators, like, he is the Nashville Predators. They don't become the franchise they are without him. Like I said, it goes off the ice, the community work that he did. Their CEO talked about, like, because they have a relationship with the hospital at Vanderbilt. And so he's there for business a lot. And he'd be going in or coming out of the building, and there would be Pekka just going up to the ward to visit the children's hospital. No PR staff, not a big deal, not an official event, no cameras following him just going. Kids at Hockey Fights cancer games that he met like 12 years ago, and still every once in a while just random calls to check in and see how they're doing. Like, the impact he had in the community there is massive. And his impact and his legacy with the Predators, like, I think UC Saros is a part of that. Like, it's by embracing the guy who was going to replace him ultimately and end his career maybe even earlier than it could have. Pekka Rinne ensured his legacy continues and helped the Predators continue an era that, I think a lot of people saw them taking a step back, but thanks to Saros as a Vezina candidate right now, they haven't. So it's just credit. You said you could hear some of the emotion in my voice. I'm a Matt, like, I got to know Pekka at the rink, but we're not close. Like, that's just how he makes you feel. Like, because I don't want to pretend like we have a great friend. Like, we're not super tight, or like, we have great conversations. And every time I talk to him, you learn things, but he just made you feel like he was your friend, right? Like, that's the type of impact he had. And so thank him for the time. And I just hope everyone enjoyed not just that interview, but the impact this guy's had on the game and the person he is as much as I did.
Hope he's staying in shape, because when he comes back for the Stadium Series game and then has the number retired, somebody in the league may need him. We've got another goaltender added to the list of the record number of netminders that have played in the National Hockey League this year.
Yeah, I figured we'd get a little break in the action. So we published a story saying there were an NHL record 102 goalies to play in games so far this season, and then Spencer goes and makes it 103. So not even halfway through the year, chances are we're going to blow this out of the water. We had an article there, and listen, we've had this article, like, versions of this have run elsewhere, or the total number of goalies that have played, because the total continues to increase. But the beauty of the one that's up right now at InGoalMag.com is we dig into what's made some of these late blooming stories special, especially Charlie Lindgren. So some great anecdotes there from Charlie, and I think it sort of goes to a lot of what we've talked about with late bloomers. It's not that they didn't know how to play goal when they came in, or that they sometimes weren't ready. Like, sometimes it's just learning something new, having a different voice, having a different influence, somebody that changes one small thing in your game where it all just kind of clicks. And you may not have met that person when you're 22 or 23, but by 26 and 27, you've been exposed. In Spencer Martin's case, multiple organizations. In Charlie Lindgren's case, when he goes from the Montreal Canadiens to the St. Louis Blues, just something new, a new idea, a new concept that clicks. And in Charlie's case, in the article that's up at InGoalMag.com right now, he really walks us through the specifics to a degree of how he manages depths and manages rush chances with more shuffles as opposed to backwards flow, and sort of the mindset of using his inside edge to cut the ice in half. And he did, like we always try and do at InGoal, he digs a little deeper than in other spots where the general numbers article may have run. So there's something in there that young goalies might be able to see and hear in Charlie Lindgren's description of the changes he's made that could help them adjust their game. It's almost like a pro tip hidden within, a feature article.
Stick tap to Jack LaFontaine, who gets his first National Hockey League start. Hutch, transitioning.
Yeah, as far as we know, as we're recording this today, he's going to be getting his first start against the New Jersey Devils. Jack did get into a game, and I think he faced 3 shots, and the first 2 were breakaways. Hardly a warm welcome to the National Hockey League by the Carolina Hurricanes. But excited for Jack to get his first start tonight. And obviously, as a Mike Richter Award winner, he's qualified and well ready for this start, and we're excited to see him.
Let's look forward to that. And on the subject of goaltending and moving forward, we're talking about a bunch of different areas of learning and educating people. And Elvis Merzlikins has a great pro reads up on the website.
Yeah, our second one with Elvis, I think 2 of 3 or 4 when he was in town, and they were still doing in-person interviews, sat down with him and did a video review session. It's a really great, just a pure, simple, from the sort of center ice in 2-on-1, but some great insights from Elvis Merzlikins that, again, whether you're playing beer league or you're a young goalie making your way up, he walks us through sort of what he's looking for early in the play, when he's looking for it, handedness, the angles guys are attacking, how his defenseman's playing it, just the kind of insights that you might be able to take away, something you haven't thought of yourself as a goaltender to help make you better the next time you're facing a 2-on-1. We're now Hutch? We got to be up to like 110 pro reads over the last 2 years.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah, I'll just put my parent hat on here for a sec, guys, if I can. I just love the pro reads. I love the pro tips and the pro drills. But if you're a parent and you're looking at all this stuff and you're thinking to yourself, how can my son or daughter digest all of this information? How can I give it to them in a way that they're going to learn something each week? We get all excited as hockey parents wanting to give them more and give them all the best opportunities. Just make it available to them. If your son or daughter has a membership here at InGoal or you do, and they want to look through these things, just let them see it. And it's amazing what they come through on their own. I haven't really fed anything to my son, and all of a sudden I notice he's doing a little bit of the Jeremy Swayman warm-up that Kevin published for us. And I hadn't given it to him. I hadn't asked him to do it. In fact, he wasn't even sure where he'd found it. He just knew that he found it somewhere online, and suddenly it made its way into the game. And I've a couple of technical things have done the same thing, not because I push it, but because it's there just for them to digest at their own speed. They don't need to go through 110 pro reads tomorrow and try and put it into their game this weekend. Just make it something that they can take in on their own, because everybody's got their own learning style. Everybody's got their own pace. And whether they're going to be an early bloomer or a late bloomer, I think that InGoal and those pro reads and pro drills that Kevin's throwing together for everybody can be invaluable.
You know what? Not just kids and parents. Like, sometimes, I wonder, like you worry about the impact, or how can we do things different? Can we do things better in terms of what we're sharing? But we hear from pro goalies that are watching other pro goalies and some of the drills and tips and things they're doing. That late bloomer thing, the guys that make it are the ones that are willing to look for new ways, new ideas. You don't have to chase every new thing, but you've got an open mind to it. And the number of times I've had professional goalies comment to me on things that they've seen on ingoalmag.com through the InGoal Premium, like it's shocked even me. And so, but that also tells me that what we're putting up there has value. So, I agree. Get your kids on there, and not just doing the sales pitch here, but the chance to learn from guys who have learned these things themselves over professional careers seems like a pretty invaluable one to me. And according to the guys actually living it, it is.
It's there. The content is available. Just got to be able to soak it up, be like a sponge. And goalie coaches, goalies, parents, regular coaches, it's all there. So be part of it. And thank you very much for joining us for this episode. Really appreciate it. Pekka Rinne from Switzerland stopping by. Looking forward to his celebration of goaltending, and looking forward to the next couple of weeks as we got some big things in store, including the King. We wish you all the best in the next week. It's the halfway point of the National Hockey League season. Start thinking about your Vezina Trophy list, maybe your top 5 at this point, and we'll digest that in 1 week. Be well, be safe, and good goaltending.